So since people want to act stupid about the evolution theory, I'm gonna let a white man tell you himself.
Now, if we go back really to the out of Africa idea, partly the fact that the whether it was a lush environment they were in, there wasn't really much incentive for people to go walking thousands of miles to do things. It's more likely, given this scenario and what Nigel hypothesizes, is that really in the same way that I mess with organisms on plates, that these guys were messing with us as a species, really looking for advantageous genetics. Not so much racism, as we said. These things are running according to a program. They only care about whether they can mess with our genes more efficiently. And it turns out that the molecule melanin, actually, when we mess with genetics and stuff, one of the ways in which we can do it is to use things like ultraviolet light to actually splice the genes in the cells and actually alter the genetics, or to get things to, things we've put in to actually take, so that we can almost microsurgically implant them in the cells. The thing is, if these cells have got a lot of melanin in them, it's a dark pigment, it tends to absorb that light and diffract it and turn it into vibrations, etc. And then the light just doesn't get where it's really supposed to go. And so really, in the discovery, perhaps even accidental, discovery of subspecies of us, if you like, or groups of us, which didn't express so much melanin, made it easier for them to get their genetic profiles into us. And therefore they then sort of sent the white people, if you like, or one group further north. Some became the Aboriginals of Australia, some were left in Africa. And so there was this great movement of these different populations, and really then they concentrated on the ones which they had most access to.
Because
not an adequate explanation. There is no real explanation or justification for the need for pale skin at all.
yeah, because I think if
Dark skin is always an advantage in every circumstance.
As most people would just automatically assume, well, they went to live in the north where there's less sun,
Yes.
so therefore their skin changed colour. But that's not
No.
the case.
According
is it
to
not?
Professor Steve Jones, an eminent professor of biology, that is absolute nonsense.
Right. Okay.
There's just no reason at all for pale skin.
You would
Right.
want to absorb more
Yeah.
light, and
Explain the special about melanin and how it protects the cell, the DNA inside the nucleus. That's very important.
part of the reason
Yeah.
you can't do these experiments, where there's a lot of melanin around, the melanin actually in a lot of people, in black people, it's actually spread out through the skin. It spreads out through the cells and covers everything. But even in a lot of white people, the melanin actually will coat the nucleus of the cell. And therefore the DNA, your central DNA, even in white people, can be actually well protected from the actions of the
But
ultraviolet
there's no
light.
doubt in people with higher melanin, natural higher melanin, that it's far more likely that that melanin will be coating the nucleus,
Yeah.
the cell wall of the nucleus of the DNA. Now the point about that is that ultraviolet light, which is often used to splice DNA, is blocked by that melanin. It absorbs it. It doesn't allow it in to interfere with the DNA. And it could well be, and this is Nigel's thesis, that this was a blocker for them when they were trying to genetically alter the species. And therefore, when maybe just out of random mutation, something like an albino came along, they discovered, wow, we can get straight in.
Right.
And it may well be that the paler skinned nation, people on the earth, have that pale skin because of this genetic experimentation to make things easier for them to work on human DNA. And in fact, Professor Steve Jones argues that this thing about vitamin D being, paler skin being there to allow vitamin D to be absorbed and so on, all these theories about why pale skin happened in the first place, he believes it's not an adequate explanation. There isn't, or justification for the need for pale skin at all.
Yeah, because I think if
Dark skin is always an advantage in every